Welcome back to the Simple Questions Podcast. I'm your host, Dylan Carnahan. That introduction was provided by AJ Cronk from MudFlap Mafia. It was called A Dark and Lonely World. If you want to show AJ Cronk or MudFlap Mafia your support, go ahead and check out either of the two on Apple Music or Spotify, as well as you can go to mudflapmafia.com to see the venues that they will be at this year. Now, let's get into the question for today's episode, which is, what is being in the zone? Some of you may have already heard that term before, and that's good. That'll provide a little context for what we're about to get into. If you haven't, don't worry. We're going to get into it. We're going to explain what that exactly means. We're going to talk about what that feels like, and we're going to talk about the benefits of being in the zone. So who are we going to be talking to about this topic of being in the zone and focus? Well, we are going to be talking to a former shortstop for the Kansas City Royals, a 1985 Royals World Series champion, the co-author of The 7 Secrets of World-Class Athletes, and Zone Motion founder. I introduce to you Buddy Biancalana. Well, I'm glad to have you on here. I know we've spoken a little bit through Avila University's baseball season, but here you are. You care a little bit to talk about how you got started with baseball and your professional career and what you've done since.
Sure. So, I took a loving to baseball as a very young boy, probably five years old, a plastic ball and a plastic bat. My dad loved the game. So we spent a lot of time in the front yard, playing catch and hitting and doing the whole bit and going to a lot of games. We grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area. So was initially a Giant fan. Then we had a friend who pitched for the Dodgers, and I became a Dodger fan. So if there are not too many Giant fans become Dodger fans, or Dodger fans become Giant fans. So that was a very, very unique experience for me. And and I just, I played, we had a really great high school program at Redwood High School in Larkspur, California. We were mythical national champions our junior year, runner-ups my senior year. Had a really great coach in Al Indris, and I had three, kind of the scouting system. They might say 3+ tools I could run, throw, and field. Didn't hit much, and ended up being a first-round pick by the Royals in 1985. Much to my surprise, I thought I was going to go in the 3rd or 4th round. Got a call the morning of the draft from John Sherholtz, the farm director of the Royals at the time, now in the Hall of Fame as a general manager. Not because he drafted me first. That's not why he made the Hall of Fame. But, and he said they were going into the draft and that they were planning on making me the first-round pick. If I was still available, would I be interested in signing? I said, if all things were right, I would. And I was a shortstop, as was Cal Ripken, and they drafted me ahead of Cal Ripken. The poor scout who made that recommendation, but that's okay. So that was the beginning. Spent 4.5 years in the minor leagues before my first call up to Kansas City. And, I spent 5 years in the major leagues, and certainly the highlight of my life at the time was, being able to play in the World Series, have a good series, win the series. And that was quite a thrill, being able to be a participant in something that brings so much fulfillment to other people is really, really wonderful. And I'm blessed to be able to still do that, in my opinion, with what we do with Zone Motion. So,
can you talk a little bit? I know you mentioned quite often kind of the story about kind of your experiences that you felt during that World Series.
Sure. So, as a kid, I always knew I wanted to play in the major leagues, and I was able to achieve that, but I could never fathom playing in the World Series. It was just like too big an event. It's like, asking someone, are you going to be president of the United States? And they'd be like, are you kidding? It's like it never crossed their mind, most likely for most people, right? That's how it was for me in the World Series. Never thought about it. And even when I got to the major leagues, it still wasn't in my mind that, World Series. Like, I'm a major league player. It's great. World Series, that's something that I watch on TV in October in front of the fireplace. Well, all of a sudden I found myself sitting in my locker before game 1 of the 85 World Series. I had to be in the dugout in 20 minutes for introductions. And I was sitting there, and usually when I'd get nervous before a game, I'd make myself a sandwich just to kind of change how I felt. It was kind of my coping mechanism at the time. And however, I 20 minutes ago got hit by, as I like to say, a wave, a 2x4 of fear, to the point where I knew for sure that I couldn't catch a ball if it was thrown to me from about 20 feet away. It was like, that's how I felt. I was completely paralyzed with the most intense feelings I'd ever experienced in my whole life. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do? I said, I can't play. I'm in the starting lineup. I said, I can't go play shortstop, in this state of mind. And it was a feeling of never that I'd never experienced before. So it wasn't like something that I knew that I would come out the other side with, or the other end. It was like paralysis. Like, whoa, now what do I do? Like, do I tell them I can't play? Do I get my street clothes on and go watch it on TV? And I just sat there, and it was the first time in my life I said, wow, this is really scary. And because I intuitively knew there was no sandwich or glass of wine or anything that was going to change how I felt in that moment.
Yeah.
And so I was just forced to sit there with it. And what happened was it just kind of dissolved, and I ended up grabbing my helmet, bat, and glove and walked down the runway there at the time Royal Stadium, now Kauffman Stadium, waited for my name to be introduced, and took the field, and ended up playing arguably the 7 best baseball games of my whole life, including Little League. It was a feeling of not being able to do anything wrong, even if I tried. Everything just really slowed down for me. I was in my own little world out there. I wasn't thinking. I felt like I had way more time at the plate. Literally, and I don't exaggerate, I make a real point to be precise in my life with my words. Literally every single ball hit me right in the sweet spot of the glove at shortstop. And every ball came out of my hand like butter off a hot knife. There was one play in St. Louis, it was in game 5, I believe, 4 or 5, where someone stole second base. Frank White took the throw, and the ball kicked out into left center field, and I ran after it to pick it up, and I picked it up barehanded, and I kind of just wheeled and turned and threw to second base just to keep the guy at second base. It's really no big deal. Being a major league infielder, it's like, no one said, oh, what a great play. It wasn't a great play. But what was very interesting was in that moment, I felt like that I could have kicked the ball to second base perfectly. It was that force that had really overtaken me that, I felt like I couldn't do anything wrong. It was crazy. And so that was the experience that I had. And we ended up winning that series, as most people know. And I almost won the MVP. I was told I was the leading vote getter for MVP of position players. Brett Saberhagen, our Cy Young Award winning pitcher that year, got the award rightfully so. He had a great series. And then 18 months later, I was out of the major leagues because I had no idea what happened in my mind that allowed me to play at that level where everything just slowed down and I wasn't thinking, and everything I did was fluid and effortless, timing great. And so my life's journey, Dylan, has been since that time to go, figure out what the heck happened, and more importantly, try and help others, access it. And that's what I do.
Yeah, no. So how have you kind of gone about that at Zone Motion?
Well, what we've been able to do is figure out, what happens in the brain when an athlete's playing their best. I was fortunate to meet a guy by the name of Steven Yellen, and together we have figured out a lot of things about the brain-body connection. And so my work, the main essence of my work takes place on the field, but as you know, there's a lot of work we do off the field that's essential. As I've learned more about neuroscience and the brain-body connection and the neural pathways in the brain, I figured out, what's really, really essential to give an athlete the best chance to really perform at a high level on a consistent basis. Because as humans, we're either strengthening or weakening neural pathways, all the time, which is rather daunting, right, to think about that. But it's true, and so ongoing practices to strengthen these neural pathways that allow an athlete to experience their sport as slowing down and not thinking, and fluid, effortless motion and great timing is essential. So, most of the initial, we call it nuts and bolts, takes place while an athlete's performing in practice or in a game. And then we have the ongoing support that is, again, essential to maintain those neural pathways and continue to strengthen them.
Yeah, it's rather unfortunate that they atrophy, right? Those
Yeah,
neural
you know,
pathways.
yeah, there are actually studies taking place now that they're showing that if you're not learning something new, you're actually forgetting what you already know. And so it's great having a podcast because you learn a lot of new things. So you're gonna remember what you already know, Dylan.
There you go, buddy. Uh,
Good to
so can you kind of tell us kind of who have you who's used this zone motion? Who have you been dealing with?
I've worked with a lot of professional athletes. I've worked with athletes in 13 professional sports. I've worked with Scott McCarron is kind of a real poster boy for me. He's won 11 tournaments since we started working together. He did that in 4 years. Matt Cain of the Giants I worked with, Jeremy Affeldt, Barry Zito, Todd Wellmeyer, Jake Petrischka. Did work with the Chicago Bulls, Portland Trailblazers, and done work with KU's baseball team, Princeton, Michigan, Arizona, race car drivers, Indy 500 drivers, and MotoGP drivers in Europe. And, so I'm really, I feel so blessed to be able to work in multiple sports because the zone experience is for the most part the same in sports. The kinetic chain, the angles, the proper angles of the specific sports have something to do with it. And a lot of people say, well, you teach the flow state. And I say, well, it's not really the flow state, it's the zone. It's a little bit different because the brain-body connection is a two-way street. And the processes of the mind affect the processes of the body, and the processes of the body affect the processes of the mind. So in a game like baseball and golf, the mechanics based on physics are essential because if the brain senses some weakness in the body where the kinetic chain is broken, it's going to throw things off in the brain. And, you're just kind of hoping, and most athletes are just kind of hoping that they, can go out and perform their best. I like to share the anecdote that, a baseball hitter goes 4 for 4 and he goes home feeling great, had a great game, goes to bed, wakes up feeling great, had a great game. And the next day he goes to the ballpark and he says, all right, I got to make sure I put my right sock on before my left and my right cleat before my left cleat, and make sure I put my lucky t-shirt on, and going to go take my 10 off the tee, 10 front toss. And then I'm just going to hope that I can perform as well tonight as I did last night without understanding what happened last night at the most fundamental level, which is the brain that took place to allow him to perform so well. And so, we have a real systematic way to teach someone how to access the origin of their emotion, which is the brain, and build in pathways. And it's not a substitute for anything that's being done right now, but it works very well in conjunction with someone who really understands, biomechanics, and we help integrate that. And it's tremendous for expediting development and minimizing soft tissue injuries while we maximize performance.
So you mentioned a lot about kind of the zone and kind of the body brain connection. So kind of how does that work? I know you've mentioned in our talks the autonomic nervous system and kind of what's some of the science behind that connection, brain body.
Yeah. So the main process for fluid motion in the body is to access the alpha theta state, a quieter, deeper state, and then move the information that you're processing to what's called the cerebellum, part of the motor system in the back of the head, and not allow it to get interrupted by the intellect, the prefrontal cortex, right? And we, as athletes and people in general, we know that when we start to think a lot, it doesn't serve us in life, but when we're able just to react, then it's like, oh yeah, things are easier, whether you're doing anything. It doesn't matter what you're doing. And as it pertains to motion, accessing a deeper, quieter state and allowing signals to travel to cerebellum uninterrupted by the prefrontal cortex allows all the muscles to fire synchronistically. And again, the kinetic chain has something to do with it. So that's the key. That's how fluid motion is produced in the body. That's how zone motion is produced. And then just strengthening those neural pathways and the brain-body connection, and identify, what else may be in the way that is keeping that athlete from being as successful as he can be.
So how does the kind of this zone compare like this whole process to say meditation? How does that compare?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's certainly similarities, right? Whatever, if you are putting your attention on, anything with strong intention, that could be considered a meditation. Whether you're walking down the street listening to birds sing, or, using a mantra meditation, or, whatever, watching a candle flame or whatever it may be. So there's certainly similarities that can help put the mind in a better state to function at a level that's more conducive for success in whatever we're doing.
So what this state, trying to achieve this zone, or as you mentioned, some people refer to it as like a flow state. What are kind of the benefits of being in that state of mind?
Wow, way more than I ever thought. Let me say that. When I started doing this, I knew that it was going to play a huge part in the sports, down the road, which it is. And so first of all, one benefit is increased performance, very quickly. We've seen amazing results. My first 11 or 12 professional and amateur pitchers saw an increase in strikeout to walk ratio of 59%, and an increase in or decrease in whip, walks and hits per innings pitched, of 28%. So we've seen, off the chart success. My first 4 professional baseball hitters, 3 of them were independent league hitters, and 1 AAA major leaguer, saw an average increase in batting average of 79 points each. And I was completely blown away by that, because I didn't really understand at the time what I was doing. I didn't understand the science behind it. I just kind of knew, oh, this works, and let's just kind of experiment with these guys. And, they had crazy success. And then I realized, oh, I'm teaching them how to access the origin of the motion, which is the brain. And so anytime you have access to the origin of anything, you then have a better chance for, to control what comes after it. If you have access to the origin of the foundation of the home, well, then you have a chance to have a strong third story. But if you're just careless with the origin of the foundation, and you're just pouring, concrete wherever you want to pour it, well, the third story, the house is going to be a little shaky. Yeah. Well, it's the same thing in sports with motion. If you're not making the brain the priority, and I actually had some posts today on LinkedIn and Twitter. Ken Rosenthal, the great writer and broadcaster, I guess brought up the point that they're, just a bunch of hit by pitches this year. Hitters are getting hit, I guess, at record rates, I guess. I didn't read the article, I saw it. And, and I told him, I said, as long as the processes in the body are the priority for the pitcher, you're not going to be able to, throw hard and command like you want. The whole key is we do want to throw hard. We want to command the body, and to command the body, you've got to command the brain, and the brain's the operating system to the muscles. So, that's what we're after.
So can you kind of elaborate more on, someone that hasn't been in that state, kind of what it feels like?
Yeah. So what it feels like is that you feel like you have more time, that you're not rushing, that you're in the moment, and it's the experience of time that controls the muscles. Anytime our mind is in the future, we're not taking our full power in this very moment right now, and we're not going to function as well as we could in that next moment. And it doesn't mean that you're not taking, it doesn't mean you don't have intention for the next moment, but you're very, very present in this moment right now. And so things slow down, right? And the mind starts to become just relaxed. It's like, okay, you're willing to wait. I'm not impatient anymore. You're willing to have patience, and you're more interested in this moment than the next moment. So that's wonderful, and that's nice. When the mind starts to operate on that, at that level, it's really beneficial in many ways. So, and you're not thinking as much. You'll have thoughts will come to you. I always say to clients, don't go looking for answers, but do put your mind in a state where the answer will come to you, right? And student athletes, if you're taking a test and you're just grinding and you're looking, some answer's not coming, don't force it, but be in a state where the answer will come to you.
Yeah, it can kind of exacerbate things a little bit, forcing that.
Exactly, right. So that's, another one of the benefits. And then, and the motion as it pertains to sports is much more fluid and effortless. And, zone motion it's a strong statement, but it's the truth, is the primary solution to the injury epidemic taking place in baseball right now with all the arm injuries. It's not the sole answer, right? I mean, there are a lot of things that go into producing fluid motion and keeping the body healthy. And, there's strengthening and nutrition and lot of factors. But as far as the missing link, when when the motion is in process, if the brain's not the priority, it creates a muscle imbalance, which will pull on ligaments and tendons.
So I just want to bring this up just for some of our listeners that may not be actually athletes. How could they use this process?
Yeah. So I've been doing some corporate work, and it's gone extremely well, because intention with detachment is really, really powerful, right? So knowing what you want is very important. But when we're able to detach from the outcome, it doesn't mean you're going to lose sight of the outcome you want. But when you're able to detach from the outcome, it reduces the fear. And there's going to be less resistance. So you can think about it as a salesperson who's trying to make a sale and he's pitching his product. And I think we've all kind of felt where someone's starting to nudge a little too hard, to kind of push, and they're trying to get you to buy, right? Well, it doesn't work very well. And it's like, whoa, this guy's pushing a little bit, I'm going to back off. So as far as, can really help people in sales and, start to understand, from a neurophysiological perspective, not an intellectual perspective, but from a neurophysiological perspective, how powerful detachment is in achieving your desired results. So it's intention with abstraction, as I like to say, and both are extremely important. And working, so the integration of that is the key.
So, so you kind of mentioned kind of this abstract state of mind, this level of dissonance. Kind of how long can that last?
Well, regular practice is essential, right? Because we're affected by our environment. In fact, environment's greater than will, right? You put yourself in an environment that is not conducive for your well-being, no matter how hard you try, you're going to weaken. And so we need to be aware of our environment, but and have steady practices that are going to keep you in that state of where it's the state of alignment, as I call it. And alignment is huge. For me, it's 80%. My good friend David Meltzer says 80% alignment, 20% action. I agree with him. And I know when I'm aligned, things happen. I tell a story that one time just several years ago, I was like, business was kind of dry for whatever reason. I was like frustrated. The deals were kind of like, weren't happy at the pace I thought. And finally I just said, I'm just going to go hang out and going to sit at Whole Foods today and hang out with a buddy. We just hung out, and all of a sudden the phone started ringing off the hook, So I completely let go of, I detached from the result I wanted, and, things started to happen. And so, when you can understand that experience from a neurophysiological perspective, it's a big difference from someone trying to get you to buy in and believe that, hey, just trust that it's going to happen, right? Oh, thanks a lot. Meanwhile, I'm, stressed out because something's not happening, and you're telling me, oh, don't worry. Well, that's easy for you to say because, right? No, but when you can understand from a neurophysiological perspective how it all works, then it's like, oh, I get it. And that's a huge help, right? That's a huge help in building the faith and the trust that you can, that you don't have to push yourself upon somebody. And it used to be what I did with this. I used to really push. You speak to general managers around Major League Baseball, I asked them about me 10 years ago. Man, that guy was like pushing zone motion so hard. It's because it's really, really good. And I thought, oh, everybody has to know about this. So why wouldn't someone want to know about this, right? Well, it just doesn't work. People feel that, and they feel that push, and it doesn't matter how good something is, they're going to feel resistance.
Yeah. So we've talked like kind of, just generally about the zone and kind of the benefits and how people can use it and the results they get. But how can you access it?
Right. So, you access it by, we use a lot of different drills and concepts, what I call paradigm shifting thoughts to put the brain in that state that, so someone has that, undeniable experience, and then just train them over time, with the, different, we now have a platform for the ongoing, zone motion process that it's not ready yet, but we're close to having it ready, with all the practices necessary to, to stay in that state on a regular basis. Because we all know we have those days in life where we're really locked in, and there are other days where we're not. And so, really understanding what needs to happen and providing someone the practices is what we're looking to do.
So I know that some of kind of the methods that I've seen on kind of the zone motion are kind of like breathing exercises and visualization and meditation. You talk a little bit more exactly about the processes.
Well, those are a lot of the follow-up trainings, right? The main essence of zone motion, what I call the real nuts and bolts, takes place while an athlete's practicing their sport, practicing their craft on the field in whatever sport. And the additional trainings, the meditations, the breathing techniques, and visualizations are utilized to continue to strengthen those neural pathways that the athlete's been introduced to, that are essential. Years ago, Dylan, I thought I could work with a professional athlete 3 days and they'd be off, and they all did really well. I was blown away by how well they did, but I would see just a very slow decline, to the point where it wasn't even alarming to the athlete, because it wasn't falling off a cliff, but it was just a steady decline. It was before I really understood, the brain body connection like I do now. So being able to have ongoing practices to keep someone closer to that zone, which is, where you want to be, is really, really essential.
So I know you've kind of mentioned kind of some pitfalls people can fall into that kind of inhibit them from getting in that zone.
Yeah. So, one pitfall that is very common in life, just came to me. One pitfall that's very common in life is that if you do this, you can expect this result. And there's certain things that's very, very true too. If I'm driving my car and I turn my hands to the right, I can expect the car to go right. And that's how our mind operates in many areas of life. Like in school, if you have to memorize 20 vocabulary words in a month, right? Or 20, whatever, foreign language words in a month. If you learn 5 this week, 5 the next week, and 5 the third week, and 5 the fourth week, there's your 20. And that's how our mind is conditioned to work. However, with zone motion, when, let's just say, you say, okay, I'm going to work on my mechanic, and I really have it, and so I'm going to really make my mechanic the priority, and I can expect this result. Quite often, you don't get the result you want. And the reason is the brain is not functioning how we want it to function, because we're attached. We're making the mechanic the priority, which is very important to have the mechanic. Good biomechanics, good physical mechanics are important for sure. But when the brain makes the desired result the outcome, right, your chances of achieving it are diminished. It doesn't mean you can't have some success. There are plenty of people that are, outcome oriented and are having success. That being said, they may not understand that, if they shifted their priority, how much more success they could have and how much more ease they could experience in their pursuit of their outcome, right? So there are plenty of people that are driven, and they're completely worn out, yet they're achieving their success. Well, we want to achieve our success, and we want it to be with more ease and efficiency, and we want to be able to be present for all of the things that are important in our life. We don't want to have to work 8 hours a day and go home and be, a couch potato, not be available to our partners and our kids. No, that's not what we want. We want to be, have intention, go after it with an abstract state of mind as it pertains to sports, right? More ease, more proficiency, more efficiency. And when we're done with it, we're going to be present in the next moment for whatever it is we need to do.
Can you kind of talk about that? How do you know you're in that abstract state of mind?
Well, you'll know when you're very consistent with your motion. Number one, if you're a hitter, you'll know because you're going to be squaring the ball up pretty consistently, assuming your mechanics are pretty good. Or if you're a pitcher, you're going to be feeling that ball come out of your hand real well, and you're going to be locating better, and your spin rate's going to be higher. But you'll know when, an athlete knows when they're where they need to be. They know that feeling. It's like, wow, okay, I really feel good here. This is easy. I feel more ease in what I'm wanting to do here. And, oh, interesting, as I feel more ease, I'm having more success. So it's something that you're aware of, and you realize that, you're just kind of, this is different. That's how I felt in the World Series. I was like, whoa, it was me and me. I was aware of my teammates, and I was aware of the opposition, and but I was just kind of in my own little world out there, which is how Maria Sharapova described her upset win of Serena Williams at Wimbledon. She said, I was just, I have no idea how I beat her. I was just in my own little world out there. So
I kind of want to go back. I like kind of, you always mentioned kind of the embedded goal is always there, right? Like you always know that I need to throw a strike or I need to hit this ball, but kind of achieving that balance of just maintaining that without being so concentrated on it.
Right. Yeah. So knowing, as you're walking to the plate, the coach doesn't need to say, hey, drive them in, make sure you get a hit, right? Right. You already know that. And so anytime, and we've shown this with our studies and research, scientific research and studies, small sample size, but we've shown them anytime the desired result or the physical biomechanic becomes a priority for the brain, it creates a muscle imbalance. That very moment, your chance of soft tissue injuries, muscles, ligaments, tendons, and fascia increases, and your chances of success diminishes. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to get hurt that very moment, and it doesn't mean you're not going to get hit and drive in the run or throw a strike. That's not what we're saying. But the chances of doing it are diminished, and the chance of injury increased. So that's the embedded goal is to get the hit or throw the strike. Yeah. And so that it cannot be the priority for the brain.
That's really interesting. So what are kind of some tips that our listeners could use to kind of get in that abstract state of mind?
So number one is just, making sure that there's nothing more important than setting one. As I mentioned, the foundation of a building, there's nothing more important than the foundation of the building, of the home. And if it's not strong, to some degree, that third floor, 50th floor is going to be weak. And it's the same thing with an athlete, that if we're not setting one in more of that alpha brainwave state, your chances of success are decreasing in that moment. So allowing the mind to settle into that deeper, quieter state is the absolute most important thing for an athlete to achieve. And then we use these abstract goals of numbers and different ways to think that start to allow the information to move through your brain to the cerebellum, that allows all the muscles to fire synchronistically, and then just continue to strengthen those pathways, and also address the energy centers in the body, and making sure that we're freed up so that everything can work the way we want it to work. And we have, most athletes have had glimpses of these these heightened states of awareness and proficiency, and like myself in the World Series, I had no idea what happened, and trying to repeat it. The level of anxiety to try and repeat my play in the World Series was crazy. I had no idea what happened. And so, but we want to help a lot of athletes and love doing it. I feel really, really blessed to be able to help people. It's like, in my opinion, there's nothing more gratifying than help others, and doing that and making plenty of money at the same time is like really wonderful, and doing good things with that money. So, I'm blessed.
Yeah. Can you kind of tell us where we can learn more about Zone Motion?
Yeah, you can go to our website, zonemotion.com. Pretty simple, zonemotion.com, or buddybiancalana.com will take you there as well. And if anybody'd like to send me an email, they can access me through the website. If anybody'd like to get on, I do a complimentary 10-minute call just to help someone understand more so and see if it's a fit for them. And so I'm happy to do that. So.
All right. I hope we can get you some emails and some people checking out that website, buddy.
Great, Dylan. Really nice to visit with you. Great job.
Well, that concludes the interview with Buddy. I hope you guys got something out of it. I know that's a little bit of a different topic that you may not be accustomed to, and that's what makes it nice to have someone like Buddy come in and kind of clear the air on that. We talked about quite a bit. We talked about, the feeling, the sensations of being in the zone, kind of what an abstract mindset is, kind of some tips potentially to get into that zone and the application of what that zone can do and what you can apply it to. Now it is my favorite time. Shameless plugging. Yes, that's right. I'm talking about you, the listener, going to simplequestionspodcast.com, checking out the show notes, checking out the resources that I've painstakingly put in there. I'm talking about you, the listener, going to subscribe to this podcast. I'm talking about you, the listener, going and checking out AJ Cronk and the MudFlap Mafia, and you, the listener, going to check out zonemotion.com. Next episode is going to be on a topic that is perhaps a little less informative, more entertaining, more humorous, and all around it's just going to be a little bit different than the topics that we've discussed here on Simple Questions Podcast, and I think you guys are going to enjoy it. So stay tuned to hear what that's all about, and like always, keep asking questions.